They vanished without a trace, but the search never stopped. Some are believed to be leading powerful criminal networks. Others are wanted for deeply serious crimes that shocked communities. They've managed to stay hidden, avoiding global tracking, crossing borders undetected, and slipping past security systems that catch almost everyone else. But even now, they haven't been found. These are the FBI's most wanted criminals still at large in 2025. Strategic, elusive, international. And one or two, they might be closer than anyone expects. Stay with us, because number one is someone most people have never heard of, but whose case is one of the most chilling you'll ever learn about. Don't miss part 2. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and join us as we reveal even more criminals the world is still trying to catch. Number 10. Octaviano Juarez-Corro, the picnic shooter who vanished for 16 years. It was supposed to be a peaceful Memorial Day picnic, grilled food, music, families enjoying the sun. But what unfolded in Milwaukee's South Shore Park on May 29, 2006, would haunt the city for years. A man, angry and armed, opened fire into a crowd of innocent people. 2 lives ended. Several were injured, and the shooter? He disappeared like smoke in the wind. This is the story of Octaviano Juarez-Corro, the man who dodged justice for 16 years until the world caught up with him. It was just after 5 p.m. when the picnic crowd at South Shore Park began to thin. The laughter of children and the chatter of families filled the air. Among them was Alexandria Martinez, who brought her daughters for some holiday peace. Not far off, her estranged husband, Octaviano Juarez-Corro, was circling the park. Juarez-Corro wasn't invited. He and Alexandria were separated. There had been arguments, restraining orders, accusations of controlling behavior. But on this day, he wanted access to their daughters, and when he was told no, everything unraveled. He left briefly, then returned. Only this time he was armed. Witnesses say he approached a group near a picnic table, pulled out a handgun, and began firing at point-blank range. He hit 2 men in the head and neck, killing them instantly. Then he turned the gun toward others, firing at random. By the time the bullets stopped flying, 5 people were hit, and panic had gripped the entire park. Within minutes, Juarez-Corro had vanished. Witnesses tried to describe the car, the license plate, his direction, but it was chaos. Police arrived quickly, but he had already crossed city limits. By the next morning, a warrant was issued for his arrest on 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 3 counts of attempted homicide. The FBI joined the hunt. His photos circulated across news stations and at every border checkpoint in the Southwest. But there were no leads, no digital trail, no phone activity. It was like he never existed. As weeks turned into months and months into years, Juarez-Corro became a ghost. Investigators suspected he had fled the country, most likely to Mexico, where he had strong family ties. But Mexico is vast, with hundreds of border towns, rural hideouts, and corrupt local officials. Without precise intel, it was a needle in a haystack. In 2007, Interpol issued a red notice. In 2016, the FBI added Juarez-Corro to its 10 most wanted fugitives list. A reward of $100,000 was offered for information leading to his capture, but the silence continued. For over a decade, Juarez-Corro lived outside the law, but not without impact. Alexandria Martinez never recovered emotionally. Her daughters grew up with trauma. Survivors of the picnic still struggled with PTSD. One described the sound of gunfire that day as a loop that never stops playing. Meanwhile, the FBI worked behind the scenes, checking aliases, pressuring informants, tracking down anyone who may have spoken to him. There were occasional whispers: a bartender in Veracruz, a farmhand in Zacatecas, a cousin who claimed he saw Octaviano at a funeral in 2012. But every lead ran cold until early 2022. After 16 years on the run, the moment finally arrived. Mexican authorities, working closely with the FBI, located Juarez-Corro in Guadalajara, a sprawling city of over 5 million people. He was living under an alias. No phone, no internet. Just cash jobs and a false ID, but age had caught up to him. He was 48 now, graying, tired, and no longer invisible. On February 3, 2022, he was arrested without incident. The FBI released a statement within hours, confirming that one of their most wanted had finally been captured. He was extradited to the United States and booked into the Milwaukee County Jail. his charges were reinstated immediately. When Juarez-Corro stepped into an American courtroom in 2022, survivors watched from the benches. Some cried, others clenched fists. He entered a not guilty plea. But the evidence was strong: eyewitnesses, ballistics, and the cold, undeniable fact that he had fled for over a decade and a half. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 3 counts of attempted first-degree homicide. His bail? Set at $1.5 million. And while the trial is still pending, his freedom is over. Octaviano Juarez-Corro wasn't a global terrorist or a drug kingpin. He was something scarier, an ordinary man who committed an extraordinary act of violence and thought he could disappear. For 16 years he did. But in the end, justice didn't forget. The system didn't forget. And neither did the families who still visit those graves every May. You can run for years. You can change your name. But for some crimes, the world never stops hunting. Octaviano Juarez-Corro is proof of that. Number 9. Eugene Palmer, the elderly fugitive who vanished into the woods. He was a father, a grandfather, a man in his 70s. But one fall morning in 2012, Eugene Palmer did something no one saw coming. He walked up to his daughter-in-law and allegedly pulled the trigger. Then he disappeared. For over a decade, law enforcement has searched forests, questioned neighbors, and even chased rumors that he's long dead. But the case remains open, and the FBI still wants answers. It was a chilly Monday morning, September 24, 2012, in Stony Point, a quiet suburb in Rockland County, New York. The leaves were starting to turn. The houses were close together, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors. But inside the Palmer household, tensions had been building for months. Tammy Palmer, 39 years old, was married to Eugene's son, John Palmer. Their marriage had hit rough waters. There were fights, restraining orders. Tammy had accused John of domestic violence. She wanted a clean break for herself and for their 2 kids. But that meant cutting ties with the rest of the Palmer family, including Eugene, her father-in-law. Eugene Palmer was a Navy veteran, a skilled outdoorsman. He was known around town as someone who loved nature, hunting, and the solitude of the woods. But those close to him also said he was fiercely loyal to his family, especially to his son. On that September morning, Tammy walked her kids to the school bus stop. She was returning to her house when, according to police, Eugene approached her with a shotgun. He said nothing. He pulled the trigger. Witnesses later told police they heard 2 blasts. Tammy collapsed just steps from her front porch, shot in the chest and head. Her children watched in horror from nearby. By the time neighbors ran outside, Eugene was gone. Police were called immediately. Officers found Tammy's body near the porch. Within hours, they named Eugene Palmer as the suspect. But he had a head start. Investigators discovered his truck abandoned at the edge of Harriman State Park, a vast 47,000-acre wilderness filled with thick woods, winding trails, and enough places to hide for years. Palmer knew the land well. He was an expert tracker. He had hunting cabins, caches of supplies, and intimate knowledge of the terrain. A manhunt began. Dozens of officers, dogs, and helicopters. But after a week, nothing. No blood. No body. No sign of Eugene Palmer. Years passed. Palmer became a mystery. Was he hiding? Was he dead? Some locals believed he had suffered a medical emergency and died in the woods. Others were sure he was alive, maybe helped by friends, or even living under a new identity in another state. What made the mystery more chilling was his age. He was 73 at the time of the murder. That would make him over 85 years old today. And yet the FBI still believes he might be alive. They added him to the 10 most wanted fugitives list in May 2019, nearly 7 years after the crime. Here's what authorities know. Name: Eugene Palmer. Born April 4th, 1939. Height: 5 feet 10. Weight: around 220 pounds. Distinctive features: arthritis in one hand, partial hearing loss. Known for wilderness survival, hunting skills, and mechanical knowledge. Last seen: fleeing into Harriman State Park after allegedly killing Tammy Palmer. Reward: $100,000 for information leading to his arrest. The FBI continues to monitor leads, especially in rural parts of New York, Pennsylvania, and the Appalachian region. Tammy Palmer's family still grieves. Her children grew up without their mother and without justice. They remember the horror of that day and the fear that the man who changed their lives forever never had to answer for it. Local authorities occasionally receive sightings, a man resembling Palmer at a gas station or camping alone in a wooded area. But none have been confirmed. In one haunting interview, a detective said, "If he's alive, he's watching us. If he's dead, the woods swallowed the truth." Eugene Palmer's case is a stark reminder that fugitives come in all forms, not just young, dangerous, and fast, but sometimes elderly, experienced, and patient. His story raises uncomfortable questions. How long can a man live off the grid? Can age truly erase accountability? And what happens when the truth dies in silence? The FBI doesn't close files like this. Not until they have proof. Eugene Palmer may be in his 80s, but if he's alive, they're still coming. Number 8. Raphael Caro Quintero, the narco who triggered a war. Before El Chapo, before the modern cartels became household names, there was Raphael Caro Quintero. Wealthy, untouchable, a founding father of Mexico's drug empire. But what made him infamous wasn't just the drugs. It was the brutal killing of a U.S. federal agent that sparked a decades-long manhunt. Raphael Caro Quintero was born in October 1952 in a poor farming village in Badrashkumar, Sinaloa, a place now legendary as the cradle of Mexico's drug lords. He grew up working the land, quiet, poor. But Caro Quintero wasn't content to stay that way. By his 20s, he'd found a new crop far more profitable than corn, marijuana. With help from Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, he co-founded the Guadalajara cartel in the late 1970s. Together, they built an empire smuggling massive quantities of drugs into the United States. But Caro Quintero wasn't just a trafficker. He was a visionary and logistics mastermind who pioneered the use of massive marijuana plantations in Mexico. One of his largest farms, Rancho El Bufalo, was said to span over 1,000 acres, producing billions in profit. By the early 1980s, U.S. law enforcement had taken notice. One name stood out: Enrique Kiki Camarena, a USD agent working undercover in Mexico. Kiki had infiltrated cartel operations, tracking routes, identifying farms, and feeding intelligence back to Washington. In 1984, thanks in part to Kiki's intel, Mexican soldiers raided El Bufalo, torching more than 10,000 tons of marijuana. Caro Quintero was furious. Not just at the money lost, but at the breach of trust. He suspected a mole, and he believed that mole was Kiki. On February 7, 1985, Kiki Camarena was abducted while leaving the U.S. consulate in Guadalajara. He was driven to a cartel safe house where, for over 30 hours, he was brutally beaten with metal rods, burned, and injected with drugs to keep him conscious. His skull was crushed. His ribs were broken. The tapes of his interrogation later recovered by U.S. intelligence haunted even seasoned agents. On March 5th, his body was found buried in a shallow grave with that of a Mexican pilot, Alfredo Zavala. The murder of a U.S. agent on foreign soil sent shockwaves through Washington. The U.S. demanded justice. Mexican authorities quickly arrested Caro Quintero in Costa Rica just weeks after Kiki's death. He was extradited back to Mexico and sentenced to 40 years in prison. But in 2013, after serving just 28 years, he was released on a technicality. A Mexican court ruled that he had been improperly tried in federal court instead of state court. By the time U.S. officials learned of it, he was gone. The fugitive had returned. For nearly a decade, Caro Quintero vanished into legend. Despite the fact that he was one of the FBI's 10 most wanted, with a $20 million reward on his head, he moved through Mexico with impunity. Whispers placed him in Sinaloa, Durango, and even Guatemala. Photos emerged now and then, grainy shots of a gray-haired man in cowboy hats. But no one could pin him down. In interviews given from hiding, he claimed innocence in the Camarena case, saying, "I didn't kidnap him, I didn't torture him, I wasn't even there." Still, both U.S. and Mexican authorities remained convinced. He was involved, directly or indirectly. He was dubbed the Narco of Narcos, a man whose crime sparked the first major collapse in U.S.-Mexico cooperation, and whose name still echoed in DEA training manuals. Then, in July 2022, the long chase finally ended. Mexican Navy forces tracked him to San Simon, Sinaloa, where he was hiding in the mountains. It was a rural, almost untouched village, no cell towers, no media. The arrest was swift. Helicopters, armed troops, a house surrounded, no shots fired. He was flown out under heavy guard, a 69-year-old man now facing extradition to the United States. Some say he was betrayed. Others say he was tired of running. The truth may never be known. Raphael Caro Quintero now sits in custody, but for many, the damage he caused cannot be undone. The murder of Kiki Camarena ignited decades of tension between the US and Mexico. It led to Operation Leyenda, the largest DEA homicide investigation ever conducted. And it turned Caro Quintero into something more than a criminal. He became a symbol. A symbol of how far cartels would go to protect their power, and how even the most wanted fugitives can slip through the cracks if the system lets them. He founded a drug empire, ordered a murder that shocked the world, disappeared for years. And now, the world is watching what happens next. Number 7. Badrashkumar Patel, the husband who never came back. It was a normal night at Dunkin' Donuts in Hanover, Maryland. Customers came, coffee was brewed. And behind the counter, a young married couple worked the late shift. But just past midnight, one of them never came back. What followed became one of the most haunting and international fugitive cases in FBI history. Badrashkumar Patel and his wife Palak Patel were in their mid-20s. They had come to the US from India and lived a modest life, working together at a Dunkin' Donuts owned by a relative in Hanover, Maryland. They were quiet, polite, no previous criminal record. No history of domestic issues, at least, not publicly known. But beneath the surface, tensions were rising. Palak wanted to return to India. Badrashkumar did not. She missed her family. She longed for a change. He feared deportation, losing his work, and returning home with shame. No one knew how volatile it had become until the night of April 12, 2015. It was just after midnight, technically April 13, 2015. Surveillance footage shows the couple moving around the back kitchen of the Dunkin' Donuts. At 12:04 a.m., cameras captured Badrashkumar walking directly behind Palak into a back area. Then, silence. Moments later, Badrashkumar is seen leaving the kitchen alone, calm, with no signs of distress. He exits the shop, disappears into the night. When co-workers arrived for the morning shift, they found Palak's body. She had been bludgeoned to death. The scene was brutal. It was quickly ruled a homicide. And there was only one suspect. Within hours, authorities knew they had a manhunt on their hands. They believe Patel walked from the Dunkin' Donuts to his nearby apartment, changed clothes, and vanished. He may have taken a cab to Newark, New Jersey, and boarded a flight under the radar. Some reports indicate he may have used forged documents or had help from family. The working theory: he fled to India, where he may be hiding in Gujarat or a rural village protected by people unwilling to turn him in. The FBI got involved quickly. His name was added to Interpol's Red Notice list, meaning border agents across the world were alerted. In 2017, he was officially added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list. A $100,000 reward was posted for information leading to his capture. Despite this, leads were scarce. The challenge? India has no extradition treaty that guarantees a swift return, and Patel's whereabouts are likely in places where the US has little jurisdiction. Over the years, the case has popped up in media, international alerts, and FBI press conferences. But not once has Patel surfaced. No arrests, no confirmed sightings. Not a single phone call from him to family members has been confirmed. What makes the case haunting is how quiet and simple it appeared from the outside. There was no grand cartel, no criminal background. Just a young man, his wife, and a single moment of fatal rage. But what happened afterward shows a level of cold calculation. The planning or luck of avoiding airport alerts, crossing international borders, and remaining hidden for years in a highly monitored world raises questions. Was it premeditated? Did he kill Palak in the heat of an argument? Or was the return to India a ticking time bomb he knew he'd detonate? As of 2025, Badrashkumar Patel is still listed as armed and dangerous by the FBI. His wanted poster notes: approximate height, 5 feet 9, black hair, brown eyes. Likely speaks Gujarati, Hindi, and English. May have altered his appearance. Despite being in his early 40s now, most FBI renders of him remain youthful. His original image burned into the most wanted lists and digital billboards across the country. To this day, his story haunts Maryland law enforcement. A state trooper once said, he was right there, in front of the camera. And then like that he's gone. He didn't use a tunnel, he didn't hijack a helicopter. He just disappeared, but justice doesn't forget. And somewhere out there, Badrashkumar Patel may be watching the world from behind closed curtains, knowing the FBI is still watching back. Number 6. Alexis Flores, the man who took a child, then disappeared. He gave a fake name, lived in an abandoned building, said he was homeless, just looking for work. But what no one knew was he was hiding something far darker. Something that wouldn't be uncovered until years later, when a single drop of DNA exposed a child killer. It was the peak of summer in Philadelphia. Temperatures were rising, neighborhoods buzzed with kids on summer break, and families tried to stay cool in the city's tight row homes. One of those families was the Arias family, immigrants from Honduras trying to build a life in Hunting Park, a working-class neighborhood. Among them was 5-year-old Ariana de Jesus, a joyful little girl, always smiling, always in motion. On July 29, 2000, Ariana went out to play with her sister and some neighborhood children. But when her sister turned around, Ariana was gone. Panic set in immediately. The neighborhood joined the search. Flyers went up. Police combed the area. Then, 5 days later, her body was found. Ariana had been raped, strangled, and wrapped in a trash bag. Her tiny body was found behind an abandoned apartment building, one that had recently been occupied by a drifter who called himself Carlos. He was gone. He'd only been there a short time. Locals said he was polite, spoke Spanish, said he was from Honduras, said he was homeless and looking for work. No one had gotten a last name. Carlos had simply vanished, just like Ariana did. Years passed, leads dried up. The Arias family was left devastated, with no closure, no justice. The case became one of many cold files in the Philadelphia police archives. Until 2007, when a spark lit the case back to life. That year, a man in federal custody in Arizona had his DNA uploaded into the National CODIS database. His name? Alexis Flores, arrested for possession of forged documents and giving false ID to law enforcement. His DNA matched the one left on Ariana's body in 2000. Alexis Flores was born in Honduras in 1975. At some point, he entered the United States illegally. Throughout the early 2000s, he moved across various states using stolen identities, including Carlos, the name he used in Philadelphia. By the time authorities made the DNA match in 2007, Flores had already been deported back to Honduras. But when U.S. officials tried to locate him, he was gone again. In 2007, a warrant was issued for his arrest. By 2008, Alexis Flores was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. The reward? $100,000. He is considered armed, dangerous, and possibly supported by individuals in Central America. His known aliases include Carlos, Mario Flores, Alex Contreras. Interpol also issued a red notice, alerting global agencies to detain him if spotted. Despite these efforts, he remains missing as of 2025. Descriptions suggest height, 5'4", weight around 130 pounds, language, Spanish. Distinctive feature, scar on his right cheek, but even those details might be outdated now. Authorities believe he could be working in rural Central America under a new identity, hiding with relatives or in areas with no extradition treaty, constantly moving, rarely staying in one place. There have been unconfirmed sightings in Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico, but no solid leads. It's about the betrayal of trust, a man who lived near a family, saw their little girl every day, and still carried out something so horrific. It's about justice for a 5-year-old who had her entire life stolen in a single moment of cruelty. And it's about the danger of ghosts, because men like Alexis Flores don't stop after one crime. Experts believe he may have harmed others. He may still be doing it. Alexis Flores escaped once, but every year that passes, the net gets tighter. From facial recognition to AI surveillance, from international manhunts to $100,000 bounties, this man is running out of places to hide. And if you're watching this from anywhere in Central America, look closely. Because the face you see might just be America's most wanted child killer still walking free. They disappeared into the shadows, but the hunt never stopped. From violent fugitives to cartel masterminds, these men have evaded justice for years, even decades. But part 1 was just the beginning. So if you want to know who tops the FBI's list, and why some of these names are kept so quiet, subscribe, hit that bell, and don't miss part 2. The search isn't over. And next time, we go even deeper.